Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Within Black Ops 6 Warzone right now, there are a few particular issues directly related to the Gunsmith. Like, quite frankly, outside of most of the Black Ops 6 weapons seemingly functioning as intended, a lot of the Gunsmith is broken in some pretty major ways. And today, I wanted to highlight some of these significant issues with the Gunsmith, ideally get some eyes on them. You know, if anyone from Call of Duty, the Raven team, any devs working on the game potentially see this, ideally, we can help make the game better and improve and fix things. And if you want to help get more attention on the video, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. But also, I just want to highlight some things that you guys might make some mistakes looking at and saying, oh, hey, the game says this, so that's got to be right, because in a lot of cases, that's not necessarily it. But as we do dive into several game-breaking Gunsmith issues here, if you are new to the channel, every single day I got you guys covered with everything going on in COD, whether it is news, updates, patch notes, meta breakdowns, everything like that is right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. We're getting closer and closer to 1 million subscribers, and I'd love to see if we can hit that before the end of the year. But the first thing I want to focus on here is actually how broken some particular attachments and attachment breakdowns are. It seems like mostly for older weapons, MW2 and MW3 weapons. For instance, the DTIR. One little side issue here, you'll notice it says my DTIR is level 1. I definitely have this thing maxed. I used it for 2 months straight, just like all of you in MW3. And even when I go through and I look at my attachments, like I've got everything unlocked. Like, it's definitely not level 1, but that's just a visual bug. I do have everything available for it. However, what I do have available for it is just straight lying to me, because like particularly, let's look at the barrels here. I'll go ahead, move the face cam over so we can see some pros and cons here. For instance, the long barrel here, since it's helping out with velocity and range as a pro, right? But then the cons say it hurts the velocity and the range. So right away, one initial issue, the pros and cons are not right on MW2 and MW3 attachments, it seems. Now, I've looked at a lot of different Black Ops 6 ones just to double check, and it seems like those are mostly all correct. This, though, is like way off. The short barrel, for instance, says it helps out with velocity and range. And look at what it hurts. Velocity and range. Oh, and it says it helps out with recoil control, but it also hurts recoil control. You can also look at the advanced stats too. You can see it is in fact hurting the velocity. It's also hurting the control. It's speeding it up a little bit with the ADS and the general movement speed, even though it says it's actually hurting the ADS and the cons. The other long barrel as well says it speeds up ADS and movement speed, but look at that. What do you know? 10% minus movement speed, 8% worse ADS, 8% worse sprint to fire. So these are just blatantly incorrect. This is like the inverse of you know, Cold War Warzone. You may recall when that integration happened and all the Cold War attachments were completely wrong. Like, the long barrel would be good for close range, but then the suppressed barrel had crazy good damage or something like that. Well, this is just everything being like the inverse of what it's supposed to do. It seems like, I don't know how the descriptions, how the pros and cons of the advanced stats ended up being so incorrect, but lo and behold, they are. There's definitely some major issues going on with those. So they absolutely need to fix the accuracy of some of the stuff going on with the attachment descriptions on MW2 and MW3 guns. Another thing that's going on, you'll notice this a lot on MW2 and MW3 weapons as well, is the updates that they made to muzzles and underbarrels. Basically with this, as we saw in the initial patch notes, they made these more universal attachment areas. So now, instead of having, you know, the BW4 hand stop do something to your ADS and sprint to fire, it's doing 10% and 8%, and then potentially a different underbarrel like this doing a little bit more in maybe your ADS or a little bit more in your sprint to fire. They're basically all going to be the same thing now. Like, if you were to look at the other mobility based attachments, it's 10% to your ADS, 8% to your sprint to fire. DR6, 10% and 8%. It used to be different intervals where hand stop might have been 12% on your ADS, but only 6 on sprint to fire. And a different one, like let's say for instance the MSP98 was doing 14 to ADS, but doing 2 to sprint to fire. Now it's all the same. So basically what they've gone through and done is made it so that we have a bunch of different attachments. Like, obviously we have 100 different underbarrels, but you'll notice pretty much all of these vertical grips, they're all doing the exact same thing. It's 10% to the control for every single one of them. There is literally zero difference in these outside of their visual stuff. Now, for me personally, I think that's just unnecessary bloat at this point. Sure, the visuals of some of these might look cooler, like the pineapple grip might look cooler than the bow breaker grip or whatever, right? Totally subjective there. But why do we have 200 different underbarrels when there's only 3 differences? It's either movement speed, control, or it's like hip fire and tack stance. To me, it might seem like it just makes more sense now to have 2 or 3 vertical underbarrels, 2 or 3 mobility underbarrels, 2 or 3, hip fire and tack stance underbarrels, rather than having all of these that do the exact same thing. There's only 3 differences in the actual stats here. So to me, it just seems a little bit strange now that we have that being spammed there. Then same deal with muzzles. Every single suppressor now is going to do the same thing. You know, outside of like Jack BFB and one-off situations like that, these are all doing the same thing. Casus Break is doing 15%. So is Tempest. So is the Compensator. We have a million different muzzles now that are all doing the same things. All the suppressors are doing the exact same things as well. So it's a lot of rinse and repeat with no actual differences being made to any of the stats here. It's just a visual thing at this point. So that might just be excess stuff. I feel like that gives the game an opportunity to have things randomly break because there is so much bloat here, even though it's all the exact same stats at the end of the day. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on this. Do you think this is excessive? Do you like that there's visual differences now and they're all the same statistically? Would you rather there just be like 2 suppressors that do the same thing and 2 or 3 compensators that do the same thing? The same deal with underbarrels. It's an interesting scenario now, but it is something that did drastically change with this update. It was mentioned in the patch notes, but it's a lot easier to see what they meant in game now. Unfortunately though, there are a lot more issues than that. For instance, let's go and take a look at the Renetti pistol here, right? So for instance, I've got a build here that I went through and customized. I put on the Jack Ferocity carbine kit. We'll talk about some issues going on with this in just a moment as well, and something that's going to affect a lot of different other attachments. And I made my standard build. I got a laser sight on there for mobility, an extended mag, a suppressor, and I even have the NIDAR model 2023. You'll notice that some of these optics, it just does not let me use. If I wanted to use the Slimline Pro, it yells at me. It says, hey, take off the conversion kit. All right, I gotcha. I won't put on that optic. I'll put on one that it says is legal, right? I like the NIDAR, so I'll keep that one on. I'll even go ahead and re-equip it because I just unequipped it by accident. You can see I selected it. It says equipped. And well, what do you know? If I were to load into the firing range here and I switch to my pistol, that's not the NIDAR, is it? And now I can't see when I shoot because the irons are terrible on this thing. So not only do we have issues with the MW2 and MW3 attachments just being blatantly wrong with what they say they're doing, but also now attachments aren't loading in correctly. Now, we've had a huge issue going on with blueprints in the game for some time where if you use a weapon blueprint, even a Black Ops 6 one, and you change the attachments, the changes don't happen. Or you stack attachments on top of the blueprint one. Like if you take a red dot off of a blueprint that comes with that by default, you load into the game, the red dot will be back, right? But now you build the setup how you want, and depending on which gun it is, it might work for some, it might not work for others, like the Renetti, for instance here. You put on your desired attachment, you put on your desired loadout, you load into the game, and it just doesn't work. Huge issue there as well. But still, that's not all when it comes to how this gunsmith is broken. Let's just say I clear things off for the sake of adjusting the setup here. I'm going to keep the Ferocity carbine kit on here. You'll see that there are warnings on here, obviously, with attachments that are no longer compatible because I changed something on this gun. I used a conversion kit. Like, for instance, I can't use any of these triggers because they're not relevant when the weapon is full auto. So if I try and put this on, it says, hey, this is blocked by the Ferocity carbine kit. If I were to try and use a certain barrel, it's going to say, hey, it's blocked by the Ferocity carbine kit. But then if I wanted to use a certain suppressor, let's say we're using the mod suppressor, that goes on fine. It is what it is. If I wanted to use a certain underbarrel here, let's say I really wanted to use the pineapple, that's great. It's on there. It is what it is. Well, what if other attachments say they're fine? Like I wanted to use a rear grip, for instance. Oh, you might notice there's a couple that aren't compatible here. I can't use the Akimbo Renetti with the carbine kit on there, but it says I can use the Eclipser grip. I'll go ahead. I'll put that on. Yeah, it gives me better movement speed. I want to use that. Oh, it says no. But what if I equip it? Yeah, that's right. I went against the system there. And now it says I have the Eclipser grip on there, but I also have the Ferocity carbine kit on here. So it's giving you a warning that actually doesn't even apply to it. It's so buggy. It says you can't use this, and then you actually can't use this, but then it says you can't use this, and you can just bypass it anyways, and it doesn't matter. So there are definitely some significant problems going on. I don't know if this is more correlated to the fact that this is an aftermarket part. Maybe these are extra buggy in comparison to some of the standard MW2 and MW3 weapons that got a lot of adjustments, but safe to say they tried to overhaul things with, the previous game's weapons, and while some things were great and some things worked, and it does actually balance things out, there are side effects like there are with every single major update here in Warzone that actually cause some pretty large issues here. So there's a good chance that several of your loadouts right now in game, whether you're using an MW2 weapon, an MW3 weapon, or sometimes even a Black Ops 6 weapon, there are issues that are completely game breaking and completely, busting your setups here so that they can't be used correctly or in the way that you intend them to. So hopefully they go through and they adjust some things here, because as it stands right now, yeah, things are looking a little rough to say the least. But that said, it's going to wrap things up. Definitely wanted to bring some more attention to some of these issues. Hopefully they get resolved quickly. Of course, if they make any changes, any updates, or if they talk about how they are addressing these things, I'll be sure to keep you guys in the know with the latest need to know details. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications to stay up to date with that, alongside everything else going on in COD. And if you enjoyed this video, you find it helpful, you want to get more attention on it, be sure to drop a like on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.